So today we're doing a really specific deep dive, one we've put together just for you, into a situation that gets a lot of sensational headlines. We're looking at McAllen, Texas. It's a city that, often ends up at the top of list for having the highest rates of obesity in the country.
And our goal is to really get behind those headlines.
Exactly. Our mission here is to strip away the sensationalism. We're going to use the source material we've gathered, public health reports, economic data, on-the-ground studies, to really understand why.
To see what this crisis tells us about health and money and the environment in America today.
Okay, so let's ground this for you right away with some of the numbers. They're pretty startling.
They really are.
McAllen has about 150,000 people, and according to the data, it's also home to over 500 fast food restaurants.
500. That sheer volume is hard to even picture.
It is, and we saw reports documenting that for some people, daily calorie consumption could reach 9 or even 10,000 calories.
And the main statistic for the region is just stark. It's about 38% of adults who are affected by obesity.
Which is so much higher than the national average. I think it's hovering around 26% right now.
Right. And these numbers, they're staggering because they point to a huge collective problem with infrastructure. This is not about individual character.
Not a failure of willpower.
No. When you see a geographic cluster this intense, it's a signal. It tells you the community is under enormous pressure. So our deep dive is really about mapping out that pressure.
The cultural shifts, the economic reality.
All of it. We're talking about whole families, entire neighborhoods, living in conditions that make a healthy lifestyle. Well, incredibly difficult.
All right, let's unpack that. Let's move from the big statistics and look at what this crisis actually looks like on the ground for the most vulnerable people in that community.
It looks, frankly, it looks distressing. The data shows this crisis of early onset.
What does that mean exactly?
It means we are seeing conditions that we used to call adult onset diabetes, type 2 diabetes, now being diagnosed in children. Kids as young as 8 or 9 years old.
Wow.
I mean, that's a huge red flag, a sign that the whole system is breaking down somewhere. And when you're in the community, you see it's not isolated.
It's generational.
It's a multi-generational crisis. You'll find, a grandmother, a mother, and a child in the same family, all struggling with these weight-related health issues at the same time.
And that immediately brings up the socioeconomic side of this. You mentioned parents want to make a change, but they're just stuck. What is that economic trap that makes fast food the only real choice for so many?
It's the cruelest feedback loop you can imagine. A lot of families there are working minimum wage jobs. Often parents have to hold down 2, maybe even 3 part-time jobs just to cover rent.
So they have no time and no money.
Exactly. The 2 things you absolutely need to cook at home. Think about it. The parent gets off a late shift. They have hungry kids at home.
Right.
To shop for fresh food, prep it, cook, clean up, that could take an hour and a half.
Right.
Time they just don't have.
Yeah. But the drive-thru is right there.
The drive-thru is right there. You can pull in, get 5 meals for under $30 and be home in 15 minutes. That's not a choice about, what's most delicious. It's a survival strategy.
Fast, cheap, and always available.
It's a winning combination in this economy, even if it's a destructive one.
That really reframes the whole problem, doesn't it? It's not about laziness, it's about a lack of infrastructure. But we have to talk about the culture because that region has such a rich food tradition. Tex-Mex, traditional Mexican food, barbacoa, rice, beans.
Comfort food, big portions.
Yeah, that hospitality. So if it's about calories, why didn't that deep-rooted food culture act as a shield against all this industrial food?
That is the essential intellectual hurdle we have to clear in this deep dive.
Yeah.
The traditional food culture is not the problem.
It's not.
In fact, it was the solution.
Okay, explain that.
The sources have this really beautiful but also tragic contrast. We learned about one expert's grandmother, and like many of her generation, she lived to be 94. And what did she eat? Fresh beans, rice, homemade tortillas, vegetables from her garden. It was a healthy diet. High in fiber, high in nutrients, low in all the industrial stuff.
So what changed?
The crisis comes from the industrialization of those very same ingredients. The food system didn't replace Tex-Mex. It co-opted it. It took it over.
Can you walk us through some examples of that? Like what specific things changed?
Okay, look at the staples. The tortilla.
Right.
Traditionally, it's simple. Masa, water, salt. You make it fresh. Now, the standard is a package of tortillas from the store. And to make them last on a shelf, they're loaded with preservatives, extra fats, refined starches.
So the foundation is different.
Completely. Or look at drinks. You used to have agua fresca, literally fresh water, fresh fruit, a little bit of sugar. It's perfect for the Texas heat.
And now
Now that's been replaced by sodas and fruit juices packed with high fructose corn syrup. They're incredibly cheap to make, and they're everywhere.
And this is where that cultural idea of hospitality becomes a problem.
It gets weaponized in a way. That culture values generosity. Big portions are a sign of love, of respect. But when those generous portions are made of these industrial foods, huge plates of processed tortillas and sugary drinks, that act of kindness becomes, well, harmful to long-term health.
So the portions got bigger as the quality got worse.
Precisely.
Okay, so if we tie all this together, it's not just what people eat, but where they can get it. Let's talk about the geography of poverty in McAllen.
Exactly. You have to look at the physical environment. We have to talk about food deserts.
Meaning there are no good options nearby.
Right. If you live on the edge of town, you might have to take a 45-minute bus ride to get to a grocery store with decent produce.
But I'm guessing there's a fast food place a lot closer.
You are never more than 5 minutes from a convenience store or a drive-through. Those places are perfectly designed to sell high-sugar, high-calorie packaged goods. If you don't have a car or the 2 hours for a round trip to the grocery store, what do?
You buy what's closest and cheapest.
The environment is basically engineered against you.
And it's not just about food access, it's about activity too. I mean, a safe place to walk should be a basic health resource, right?
Absolutely. But in many low-income areas, you just don't have safe sidewalks or parks or places to gather. If you don't feel safe walking outside after dark, or it's just too hot with no shade, then activity becomes a luxury, not a daily habit.
So now let's connect all this stress, the physical, the economic, to what's happening inside the body. We know poverty is stressful, but talk about the biology of it. Stress eating isn't just a mood, it's a biological command.
It is. This is a critical point. When your body is under chronic stress, constantly worrying about bills or juggling 2 jobs, it goes into a low-level state of emergency.
I kind of fight or flight mode.
A constant low-grade fight or flight. Your body releases cortisol, the survival hormone, and cortisol sends a message. We might need a lot of energy, fast. Store fat, find quick fuel.
And the quickest fuel is?
Sugar and refined carbs. So when you're under that constant stress, your own biology is literally screaming at you to go find the highest calorie, most satisfying foods available.
Which also happen to be the cheapest and most accessible.
And that's the vicious cycle. It's not a lack of discipline, it's a powerful primal instinct being amplified by a system that makes those caloric bombs the easiest choice.
So you have poverty, plus a lack of fresh food, plus this biological stress craving, plus a flood of cheap, sugary options. I mean, when you lay it out like that, it's clear individual willpower is just a tiny piece of a massive structural puzzle.
A very tiny piece.
Okay, so let's pivot, because this is where it gets really interesting. What's being done? What are the solutions happening in McAllen right now to fight back?
The good news is the response is also structural. You can only solve a structural problem with a structural solution.
So they're changing the environment.
Yes. The sources show real investment in physical infrastructure. The city is building new walking paths, bike trails, creating green spaces to make activity safer and more accessible for everyone.
And what about the food access problem?
They're tackling that directly. There's a push for community gardens, which is great not just for the food, but for reconnecting people with how it's grown. And maybe the most ambitious part are these programs working with the corner stores, the little tiendas.
The ones that are on every corner.
Exactly. They're trying to get them to stock fresh food options.
Now that sounds great, but I imagine that's tough. Why would a small business owner swap out profitable, long-lasting snacks for expensive fruit that goes bad?
That's an excellent point, and it is a huge challenge. It requires incentives, sometimes it's subsidized refrigerators, or financial help to stock fresh goods.
So you make the healthy option a good business option.
You have to. You can't just force it. It's a long-term project because you're asking them to change their entire business model. But if you can make that corner store a little hub for fresh food, you immediately change the whole community's environment.
And what about the human element in healthcare? The sources talked a lot about community health workers or CHWs. Why are they so much more effective than a doctor just giving advice?
Because they're not outsiders.
Yeah.
That's the key. The CHWs are local, they live in the neighborhoods they serve, they speak the language, they get the culture, and critically, they understand the daily grind.
They get the logistics of survival.
Yes. Think of the difference. A doctor might say, You need to feed your kids more vegetables.
Which is good advice, but not very practical.
Right. A CHW, knowing that family's reality, might say, okay, I know you work 2 jobs. If you start your walk at 6 p.m., I can watch your kids for 20 minutes. And here's the bus you can take to the grocery store on Tuesdays. They deal with the real-world barriers: transportation, time, childcare. Medical advice alone can't do that.
So finally, let's talk about the messaging, the language of change. We know shaming people about their weight just doesn't work. It's counterproductive. So how should this conversation be framed to actually help?
The approach has to reject shame completely. Shame makes people hide, not engage. So instead, the focus is on functional wellness, not weight, not clothes size.
On what you can do.
Exactly. The conversations are about things that really matter to people. Having more energy to get through a second shift, being able to sleep through the night.
Or playing with your kids.
That's the most powerful one. Having the energy to actually get on the floor and play with your kids or your grandkids, those are immediate positive things that connect directly to values like family and strength.
And it's about small steps.
Always. Celebrate the small wins. Adding 1 glass of water a day, switching 1 snack. Radical changes almost always fail, and that just leads to more shame.
So this deep dive really shows that the situation in McAllen, it's a mirror for a national problem. Obesity is a community challenge. It's driven by social factors, by infrastructure, by economic stress. It is not just a failure of individual resolve.
Not at all.
But the hopeful part we found is that there are these community-led programs that are finally starting to target the real root causes.
And that's the final message for you, for anyone listening. If you're struggling with this, please take this lesson to heart. This environment is hard to navigate. It is not your fault.
Be kind to yourself.
Yes. Focus on small things you can add. More water, a short walk, if it's safe for you, just 1 more serving of vegetables. That's where it all begins.
And as we close out, we want to leave you with a provocative thought to chew on. If our biology is wired to make us crave unhealthy food when we're under stress, what if the most effective public health prescription isn't a diet plan at all? What if it's systemic things like massive investment in mental health access or safer walkable neighborhoods?
That reduce the stress in the first place.
Exactly. Thank you for joining us on this in-depth look at the sources. We hope you feel thoroughly informed. Take care of yourself, and we'll catch you on the next deep dive.